Hi guys, it's me, Arden Leigh. I'm back with another video. And this one is directed toward men. This one is directed toward especially men who are seeking self-improvement, men quite especially who may have come across me through the dating community. There are a lot of people who found this channel through some of my other interviews with male dating coaches, and as you guys know, I have been down that road. I have been in that world, probably a lot more than most of you have. um, so so I think that's given me a pretty unique ability, as far as women go, to be able to understand the world you're in, to understand where you're coming from. I've listened to a lot of you. I've spoken to a lot of you. And I want to talk tonight because in the last video that I released a video, which you may or may have not seen, on repairing the rift between the masculine and feminine consciousness, and specifically where that conflict is showing up right now. And if you haven't seen it, feel free to search on YouTube. It's on my channel. It was uploaded on January 21st, and it's to search Arden Leigh, masculine feminine conflict, essentially. So I noticed, I read your comments, and I noticed that that particular video, more than other ones, had quite a number of thumbs downs on it, and I'm pretty sure I know where what sort of sector that came from. And I'm not doing videos to get likes. I'm doing videos to put out a message. But what that tells me is that there were people who are listening to me, who are not necessarily ready to hear everything that I have to say. So my intention in this video is to talk to you who are watching this and seeking to become better men. My intention is to create a video where I can give you a better, wider picture of what's going on, what it means for you personally, and what it's going to mean going into the future. Let's talk about looking into the future. It's a real important skill. It's a real important skill. And as I have gotten better at zooming out and seeing more of my world as being a timeline, being able to say, okay, here's where I started, here's when I was born, and here's all the growth I made, and what are the patterns going into the future. It's just a zoom out. It is all it is. It's just about being able to look at a wider picture of your life and say, based on where I came from, what I learned, where I am now, what are the patterns that I see going into the future? Have I seen a lot of change? Have I seen a lot of growth? Have I been all over the place? Have I had all kinds of adventures, which means that in the future I'm probably going to have, a lot more exciting things. Do I want that? Do I want something that's like stability? Do I want, where do I want to go in the future? What do I want my future to look like? Well, I've seen a lot of people at this point in my life. I've met enough people to know. I've witnessed other people's journeys, and I've gotten pretty good at looking at patterns and seeing how things are going to play out in the future. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about anything supernatural. I'm not talking about mind reading abilities, whether you believe in that or not. I'm just talking about being able to zoom out and look at wider stretches of time and see what's happening, and be able to predict, kind of like the weather. Like, well, okay, if I keep going on this path, this is what's going to happen, etc., etc. So, funny thing about telling people the truth of where they are it's incredibly polarizing. Some people are not ready for your insight. The people who pay me as a coach are generally ready. They are generally looking to hear what I have to say because they want their future to be brighter. And it's really not my job to coach anyone who didn't sign up for that, obviously. That's, in some ways, that is violation of consent. But what I have done in the past sometimes is that if I'm dating a guy and things don't work out, I will give him the option. I will say, do you want to know why this didn't work? Do you want to know what I see here? Do you want to know what the issue is? And, oftentimes they'll say yes, even if they are, maybe not quite ready for it. And I'll say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I see displayed in you. Here's the qualities that, here are the actions you took that determined my conclusion. And here's where I think this is leading. And here's what I think you have to work on. Which granted, is not easy to hear from a girl that you're having a breakup with, whether they were breaking up with me or I was breaking up with them, and I've gotten, I once, I dated a guy, I went on 2 dates with him, and and sure enough, he did something that was really, really kind of dickish, and I guess it's kind of nebulous who rejected who, but ultimately I was like, look, this is why I'm ending this interaction. This is the thing that you did. This is the way it made me feel. And this, I think, is what you're, going into the future. I think this is something that you need to know about yourself so that you can make these choices from an informed place. And I sent that email, and he was like, it took a couple days, and he was like, okay, I'm not ghosting you, I'm just digesting this. And I was like, go for it, take all the time in the world. 4 months later, I get an email back from him while I'm on a date with another guy at this point. I'm out at the movies with a guy, and I go to the bathroom and I check my phone, while I'm there, and sure enough, this email, this long ass diatribe of whatever. I didn't even read past the first 2 paragraphs because he had, I guess, considered what I'd said, and he was so incensed by it that that 4 months later he decided, no, you're wrong about me, and this is not true at all, and I would never try to override another person's truth. I can only see what my perception is, and I can only help. But my educated guess is that if 4 months later it was, I hadn't even seen this guy, and if it was really bothering him that much to write me this long ass email about why I was wrong, then I think I probably hit a nerve. And I've seen so many guys who get to that point. Whether they're people I know in real life, or whether, just anywhere. I'm not speaking about anyone in particular. I'm just, it's everywhere, where they get to this point where they're on the brink of that painful truth that's going to bring them up to the next level and really help them become that next and better version of themselves. And they're almost there, and then they're no, that's wrong. That, because it requires too much work. It requires too much stepping outside yourself. It requires too much of letting go of your current beliefs in order to get to that next level. And your beliefs, we hang on to our beliefs the way that we hang on to security blankets and teddy bears. They're so, if we're I believe this and this is comforting and I'm going to hold on to this. Even in the face of ridiculous. And we're seeing that in our society right now too. We're seeing people who are hanging on to these crazy mythologies, these crazy lies that they've been telling themselves, on both sides of the political field, uh, liberals saying like, well, you know, Trump can never win. He's never going to build a wall. He's never going to ban Muslims. Well, here we fucking are, aren't we? And, you know, on the other side, you know, people you know, gosh, I've been following like the Greek catharsis of Governor Joe Walsh, who is, you know, this huge Trump supporter who's now like, you know, was clinging to all these like, you know, Hillary's emails and, you know, and drain the swamp and all this stuff, and is now being confronted with like, wow, there might be evidence that that Russia hacked our election, and oh my God, like, look, I don't want Hillary to win either, but wouldn't you be concerned, you know, fellow Republicans? Like, isn't this like, we have to look at this and whatever. So there are so many people who are clinging to these like these old beliefs, and it takes so much strength to really examine yourself, is really what it is. It takes so much strength to look in the mirror. And if the things that I was saying to these guys who you know, really welcomed my feedback, you know, if it wasn't bothering them, you know, if there wasn't a grain of truth in it for them, it'd be like, you know, when people on the internet, you know, insult me and call me ugly, or they say I'm like a 7, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna spend 4 months thinking about some dude who, like, you know, called me ugly, because it just like, no, I'm perfectly happy with how I look. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. You know, I don't care about some random dude on the internet who thinks I'm a 7. So, you know, go ahead and leave all your YouTube comments. It's really, you know, you're just wasting your own energy. I'm sure you have something better to do. So, if there weren't some sort of grain of truth, it wouldn't be so difficult to confront. So that's what I'm going to say about this video, is that if there were not a grain of truth in it, it would not make you feel so uncomfortable. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if you get to that point, talking about predicting the future, and I'm predicting about 20 minutes from now, if you get to that point where stuff is riling you up and you feel this anxiety and this discontent, and then immediately like your old beliefs are going to be like, no, she's wrong, she's been corrupted by feminism, and she's, you know, this is not the kind of woman that I would want, and she's, you know, whatever it is you're saying about me to discredit everything that I have to say. And I did see, you know, some comments last time of people who really are like right on the fence, where they're like, I want to follow you, I want to believe you, I just like, I need to get it more. So this last time we were talking about in the last video I posted, we were talking about this this conflict, this gap between the masculine and feminine, where the masculine feels that that his worth comes from his superiority and dominance over women, from being able to oppress, being able to you know, you know, to have more money, to be the one with the voice of authority in the room, and why the masculine feels so threatened when women start to rise up, you know, with the advent of feminism, and women saying, hey, you know what, we deserve equal pay, we deserve autonomy over our bodies, and we want better of you. Like, we want relationships where we get to be seen. We don't want an economy where we have to you know, like it's the 40s and 50s, you know, where we have to marry you to survive, and we're not going to stand for that anymore. And men are over here going, well, shit, you know, like this destroys the entire, you know, the entire scaffolding of everything that I knew, and I'm so resentful of you for, you know, for campaigning against the wage gap, because you don't need all that money. All you have to do is be hot. You know, I'm the one who needs $800 to go out and blow on Grey Goose, you know, at the club, so that you'll want to have sex with me. So, you know, because we are stuck in this dichotomy where men are like, you know, I need money, I need power, I need wealth, in order to have worth and be valuable and be worthy of love, and women, you know, need to be beautiful, to be pleasing. And I talked about how Donald and Melania Trump are kind of the quintessential example of that right now, with that interview where an interviewer asked Melania, you know, would you be with Donald Trump if he didn't have so much money? And she said, well, would he be with me if I weren't so beautiful? And there you have it. There is this framework by which we as a culture are currently that we're chaining ourselves in, that's miserable. And What I want to do is I want to talk about where that leads for you guys. I'm in a lucky position, like I said. Some of you have seen my videos with other male dating coaches, and that's led you here. And you know that I've been in your world. You know that I understand you, and you know that I've studied all of those things, and I have dated your heroes. I've been best friends with your heroes. I've been, I am in that world. I understand you. In many ways, I am one of you, and because of that, I feel the need to tell you where this system that we're under right now, where it leads, because it's not pretty. And I think if there is anything that Donald Trump is useful for, it's that we're seeing now where we're seeing now like what happens when that toxic patriarchal masculine gets to go about as far as it can go. And what we're seeing in that is, I saw an interview with Donald Trump recently. It was just like a 3-minute clip of it that I saw online, and I want to say it was CNN, and what the interviewer asked him was, "You're talking a lot about the numbers at your inauguration. And you're talking a lot about the people who applauded for your speeches. You're talking a lot about, all this validation that you're getting from people. When is it enough that you're the president now? When is it enough that you are the president of the United States of America?" That's where this goes, you guys. That's where this path leads, is it is never enough. It is never, ever enough. You can be president of the United States of America and you're still trying to prove to people essentially like the same, like the people on the message boards, the people, I mean, for our current president, it's Twitter, but for you guys, I was talking recently with a friend of mine, and I was explaining to him like where the pickup world kind of went. And Neil Strauss says this in The Game. He says that he notices at some point that the guys he's meeting aren't doing this for the sake of enjoying women any longer. They're doing it for the sake of impressing other men in the community on the internet. Their field reports on the message boards get them off more than their actual orgasms. And at this point, it's no longer about connecting with the feminine. It's about proving oneself to the rest of the masculine community. And it's never going to be enough. And I hope you guys can see that now. I hope with Trump in office, you can see the man's not happy. The man's not, it's his writing, his speech is not this writing or speech of a happy person. There is no contentment there. I also think that's one of the things that we really rob men of, is that the emotion of joy is considered so feminine. That pleasure is considered so feminine, that masculinity is about stoicism and dominance, and even anger, or that feeling of of proving, of always striving, that and it's like, when does it end? When does it end? A coach who is a friend and colleague of mine named Lawrence Lanoff, who is like one of the wisest men that I've met, he talks a lot about that world, because he is also friends with Neil Strauss. He is in fact, he's in Neil Strauss's book, The Truth. If you guys have read The Truth, if you have not read The Truth, I don't care, pickup artist or not, a human being if you're out there, please read Neil Strauss's The Truth. Please, please, please. You know, and you'll see where Neil has this journey, where he takes it, you know, to the end of the line. He goes about as far as he can go. He's the world's #1 pickup artist, and he's still not happy. And Lawrence, in some of his lectures, Lawrence, who is in Neil Strauss's book, The Truth, and who's also a friend of mine. Actually, that was how I met Lawrence, was through Neil. He talks about this mentality, and he says, at what point have you slept with enough women? How many women does it have to be until it's enough? How much power, how much dominance do you have? How much do you need to prove yourself until you know that you are enough? And it's a gaping void, you guys. It is a gaping void. And at some point, you will either figure out that it's a gaping void, that there is no point at which proving yourself in that capacity is ever going to feel like enough, or you won't realize it, and you'll be proving yourself to the day you die. Speaking of the day you die, I wanted to look up something before I started this video. I haven't actually looked it up, but if you Google the top 5 regrets of the dying, it's never about money or success. It's like, you know, there was a writer or a researcher who went out and just interviewed all these people who were at the end of their lives, who were, you know, on their deathbeds essentially, and said, what do you regret? What do you wish? If you could tell someone who's like a young adult now, who's at the start of that journey, you know, into their personhood, if you could tell them something, what would you tell them? And they've said, you know, well, I really wish that I had spent time with my friends more. I wish I'd kept in touch with my old friends. I wish that I had done what really made my heart joyful and not what other people expected of me. I wish, you know, it's like that cliche. It's like no one sits there on their deathbed and says, I wish I spent more time at the office. You know, everyone always wishes for more love, for more joy, and you can't take it with you. You can't get to that point. You know, what at this point we're talking about a life well lived, you guys. We're talking about we're talking about happiness, and the schools of thought out there that are telling you to prove your masculinity, to prove your dominance by going out and seeing how quickly you can get from meeting a woman to having sex with her, how many times you can do that in a week, how many numbers you can close, you know? Look, I'm not knocking pickup. Trust me, I was in that world for years. And I know that I needed that skill set. You know, I was suffering at the time. I was suffering a lot of anxiety. You know, social anxiety and certainly a lot of romantic rejection, you know, and I was just trying to figure everything out, you know? So I learned the skill set of how to go up and make conversation with strangers. I learned the skill set of what kind of things can I do to be attractive, and it opened so many cool doors for me to going on, you know, all these really cool epic adventures, meeting people who were my heroes, and you know, it was never a numbers game for me. It was never, you know, I mean, I hope that's obvious. You know, it's like, I don't think it's ever a numbers game for women, and like in that sense. Like if I just wanted to go out and see how many men I could sleep with, I mean, you know, I mean, I just put a call out in this YouTube video and say, here's my email, show up and have sex with me. Like, it's not that hard. It's not about that. It's about learning how to create attraction with people so that you can have those adventures, and you can know that when you are attracted to someone, how to get through that door. There was certainly that same rat race for me as well, in a different way, perhaps, you know, in terms of like how close could I get to people that I idolized, you know, how worthy could I be, how you know, how could I, you know, could I date these rich men who bought me shoes, and I did that, you know, and that's kind of the funny thing too, is that I got to see, you know, I got to see the rat race from my end. Now, of course, it's really funny because I'm just like, I don't even want to wear Louboutins anymore because I just look like, you know, I just look like a girl who just, who is really superficial, and it's just not, I mean, you know, it's just not where I am anymore. I acquired all of this stuff in the female rat race. I acquired, you know, the Swarovski Louboutins. I acquired the, you know, the rich and powerful men, you know, and I acquired the, you know, I did all the things that I was supposed to be doing. And what I learned was that I still pretty much, I mean, it didn't make me happy. That's not where happiness was. And the other thing I learned too is that most of those guys weren't happy either. So it was like, wow, well, now where do I go? And, you know, of course, the answer to that is, you know, it's yourself. It's all about you. It's all about you really being, you know, I talked in the last video about like, you know, I was talking about my submission. If it's a choice between I am going to be submissive and I'm going to be in this patriarchal fantasy woman box, if the other option is like, I hate myself for not being in the box, and that's not a choice, of course. Like, I did all this work to be in that box, and I became this, you know, patriarchal fantasy woman in the Louboutins and the Hervé Leger, and you know, I did all of these things. I was always like, how can I be hotter? How can I be, you know, how can I be more desirable? And it, you know, at some point it's like, okay, well, I've done, you know, about as much as I can do with my looks, and you know, from here, you know, where do I, or at least as much as I'm about, you know, as I'm willing to do, as much effort as I'm willing to put in, you know, at some point you've reached the law of diminishing returns. And, you know, after that, it's like, well, I'll be a published author. That sounds cool. Well, I'll front a rock band. That sounds cool. What next? Well, I'll do parkour. It'd be really hot if I could jump off buildings. You guys, like, this is the way I thought for so long. And granted, like, yeah, it's fun. Like, because the opposite of that is just like, don't go after your dreams. Don't, you know, just sit around and like play video games all day, you know? I'm not encouraging that either. I'm saying like moderation. Like, I'm saying if you do all of this stuff and you go down that path, you know, you're gonna figure out at some point what makes you happy. What of those things that you're doing to be attractive makes you happy? Well, it turns out actually being in a band makes me happy. Like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a rock star. That'd be super hot. I actually really enjoy the process of writing and recording music and playing live shows. That actually makes me happy for like a real reason. You know, I'm not out there trying to prove something. I'm not in that race anymore, is my whole point. So what I'm trying to say is I've seen the end of it, you know? I've seen where that goes. I've seen where that path leads. And if you're trying to just say like over and over again, just more and more and more, I need to impress more, I need to do more, I need to be more, whether it's like I need to make more money, I have to have more material possessions, I have to sleep with more women, I have to sleep with hotter women, I have to now have an MLTR, I have to have a multiple long-term relationship with, you know, like 5 women, I have to have a harem, I have to be the sheik, you know, I have to rule the world, I have to be king of the planet, you know what, it never ends. It never ever ends. And the purpose of actualizing that potential in yourself is not so you win the race. It's not so you become president of the United States for the purpose of become president of the United States so that you can tweet about, you know, like you're still out there proving it to everyone, you know, about how many people were at your inauguration. Like, when is it enough? When is it enough? The purpose is not to get to the top of the race, because that's not what makes you happy. What makes you happy is to actualize your potential so that you can try all these different things and find those things that actually bring you joy, so that you can go out and you can meet, you know, a ton of women and date a ton of women and like be happy, but then like you find the woman or women who actually make you happy. It's no longer about this numbers thing. It's about like, wow, I met this amazing girl, and every time I spend time with her, it's just, man, it's off the charts. I'm so thrilled. And I wouldn't trade this girl for, you know, 1,000 women that guys on the message board think are tens, you know. I don't care. You could have every other dude on the planet look at my woman and say, you know, that she's, I don't know, ugly or whatever. I wouldn't care. I am so happy. She's so beautiful. She is my, like, I choose her because I'm so thrilled. And it's the same thing with, like, you know, going out and actualizing all your potentials so that you can, you know, say, okay, you know, I did this for a while. I went and I got the Louboutins, and the Louboutins didn't make me happy. But I started a band, and being in the band did make me happy. That brought me real joy. So I found the things that made me happy. I don't need to keep acquiring. I can now, you know, that's the point. I'm not shaming pickup. I'm not shaming social dynamics. Lord knows I needed it, you know. I was stuck. I needed to actualize my potential. What I'm saying is this race where it's always about acquisition, it just never ends, you know. There is a really interesting statistic that in terms of money, in terms of yearly income, your happiness level, the correlation of your happiness level, maxes out at about $75,000 a year. Now, I'm sure you'll want to adjust that for inflation. I don't know how many years it's been since the study. I don't remember. You can adjust it for the quality, you know, the cost of living in the city you live in, you know, of course. But the point is, at that point, at about $75,000 or whatever it is for, you know, your year and your location, you max out and you keep trying to get more, you know. Your happiness doesn't actually, it just kind of, you know, it just kind of, it doesn't go anywhere after that. And you just create this giant, you know, giant black hole of more, and you're not satisfied with it, and it doesn't lead to happiness. So, Dan Gilbert does this. Who is a a happiness expert, does this great TED Talk. Just Google TED Talk Dan Gilbert happiness, and I think that may actually be where I heard that statistic from is his TED Talk. He also talks about how these great life events, these life-changing events happen to people. Like, say, for example, winning the lottery. Or also, say, for example, having an accident and automatically, like, immediately becoming a paraplegic. So let's take those two people. And one of them now has, $1 million, and one of them is now in a wheelchair. And what they did was they came back, 3, 6 months, a year later, whatever, to these people where this incident happened. And they said, how much happier or sadder are you than you were before? And they, and of course what he says is what you would think is lottery winners are super happy and people in a wheelchair are really sad because that really sucks to happen. But after a certain amount of time passes, they're about the same. They're like, yeah, you know what? Actually, like, not much has changed. So this is really about, why did you get into this in the first place? What are you doing? Where's your end goal? Where are you happy? And that's really what's going to change this, I think. That's really what's going to be the driving force, is that this oppression, this conflict that is happening between the masculine and feminine, where the masculine is like, you need to stay down because I need more. I need more to impress you. I need to acquire this power and dominance because power and dominance is how I define my masculinity. Does not lead to your happiness. Statistically, scientifically speaking, it's not going to get you there. It actually reminds me of the scene in the end of Austin Powers, where I think it's the second one, where Heather Graham, it's with the Mike Myers character, Fat Bastard, and he's about to kill them. And it's so, like, It's this really beautiful metaphor caught in this like silly Austin Powers movie of all places. Austin Powers and whatever Heather Graham's character's name is are, you know, about to be killed by the enemy, Fat Bastard, who's one of Dr. Evil's henchmen. And the last defense that Heather Graham, as representing the feminine in this movie, she looks at him and she says, "Can I ask you one question?" She says, "Are you happy?" And Fat Bastard thinks about it and he goes, "No, of course I'm not happy. You know, I eat because I'm depressed, and I'm depressed because I eat. It's a vicious cycle, you know." And he's like, "You know, no, I'm not happy." And he gets to that point, you know? You watch him get to that point of enlightenment, of realization of the thing he would need to know to get to the next level of himself. And you see him back off just like all my exes did. And he says, "Nah, I'm going to kill you anyway." You know, and then they escape through some other means, of course, because, you know, movie has to have a happy ending. But like, what, like, if you want to know, like, where you're at right now, like, when you're like, "Tell me, Arden, I want to be sure. Like, I'm not sure." And you're right at that point of being like, she's just a stupid feminist, and, you know, and she's, you know, she's talking this, you know, don't have her on this channel ever again, you know, like, you know, when I did an RSD video, there was like a famous pickup artist who was like, you know, "Please don't ever bring this woman back. This is ridiculous." You know, like, you're right at that point. And then you retreat into your old beliefs, because your old beliefs are that security blanket that you need, because it's so scary facing yourself. But I want you to consider something. I want you first, you know, to ask yourself if you're happy. I want you to ask what would make you happy. When you get to that point where you're like Fat Bastard and you're looking in the mirror going, "No, I'm depressed. I'm depressed because I eat, and I eat because I'm depressed, and it's a vicious cycle. And the only person who can stop that is me." When you get to that point where whatever yours is, you know, when I got to that point, when I said, "Man, I've taken this about as far as I can go, and it's not getting me the results that I want. It's not, you know, man, I've become about as attractive as I can possibly try and be. You know, Jesus, I'm a seductress, lingerie model, published author who does parkour and sings in a rock band. Like, I've done everything, and it's still not getting me there." And you get to that point where you have to face yourself. And if you want to know what true strength and courage and masculinity is, it is having the guts to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "What am I doing? Who am I? What results am I getting? What is happening in my life? And how do I take control of that?" And everything that I've permitted to happen in my life, everything that I've pursued, everything I've been complaining about, everything I've been permitting it. I take responsibility for my life. I take responsibility for my results. I take responsibility for me. That's why, like, you see so many tech bros nowadays doing ayahuasca, you know? And I am not knocking ayahuasca, believe me. Is that they've gotten to this point where they're at the top of the food chain. They're like, "What's next? What's next?" Well, their buddies came back from, you know, doing ayahuasca, and all of a sudden life has meaning. So now, you know, all these Peruvian shamans are getting, you know, getting harassed by Silicon Valley, you know, to take them on these journeys. And you know, I've heard of people snapping. I've heard of people just like their life is in shambles. They meet themselves. They go to that place where they are stripped of all of their defenses and there's nothing left. It's them and the fucking universe, man. And there's like, they are seeing the other side. They're seeing the other side of their life. And they get to that point and you know, and then they snap, and it'll either like, it'll make you stronger, or, you know, or it can break you. So you want to, you know, you want to talk masculinity, you want to talk strength. You don't need ayahuasca to do that, although, you know, it certainly doesn't hurt. But whatever it is to take to get you to that moment where you're looking in that mirror, man, that is where whew, that is masculinity. That is true power, is mastery over oneself. That is, yeah. I have a great deal of respect for a man who can shed all his beliefs momentarily, question everything, and look at himself in the mirror and take responsibility for his life and for his happiness and say, this is not getting me the results that I want. What do I need to change? And for me, you know, in going about as far as I could in the patriarchal fantasy box and being the girl who, you know, wore the Louboutins so that other guys would know that I had value, and the guy that I was with would be envied because he was with the girl in the nice shoes, you know, where I could be that ultimate prize, where I could be Marilyn Monroe, where I could make being Arden Leigh as iconic as any of those things, where I could be that valued, where I could give myself as a gift to my lover so that other people would envy him. I got to that point. I got to that law of diminishing returns. And I looked at myself and I realized something real important was that my relationships still weren't working out because they were a one-way street. And for all the guys out there who, you know, who thought that they wanted that, who thought that they wanted me because they saw their heroes dating me, you know, they saw, oh my God, Arden Leigh is like, she is the cool girl. She is the girl who understands men. She's been on our side. She understands what it's like for a man to be a pickup artist. She understands our language. She speaks our language. And she's doing everything that we want. Oh my God. Well, let me tell you what some of those relationships ended like. Let me predict the future for you. Yet again, let me tell you what will happen. Even if I fall in love with you, even if I am attracted to you, even if I give you that chance and I have that relationship with you, it is doomed to fail. It is doomed to fail if it is still a one-way street. It is, because here's what's going to happen, right? Either I'm going to keep giving and giving and giving and being that fantasy and being that fantasy. And, you know, and the guy in question either can't fulfill his end of the bargain or can't, like either he can't fulfill his end of the bargain and I start to notice it and I'm like, bruh, this is terrible. I'm putting up forth so much effort and you're not, you know, you're just completely taking me for granted. You're not doing anything back. This is ridiculous. I'm just, you know, or in even worse cases, you're so insecure about what I'm bringing to the table that you're actually taking it out on me. You're becoming abusive. You're becoming mean. Oh my God. It would always start. I used to live in Manhattan and I had this tiny apartment, you know, because it was in Manhattan. So it was like a little, you know, a little one bedroom and, you know, like you'd walk in and the bathroom was right there and I kept my cat's litter box in the bathroom. So like that would always be the first thing that guys I could predict. It was like fucking clockwork, man. 2-3 weeks of intense dating would pass and week 3 would come by and it would be like, your cat's litter box smells bad. And I'm like, dude, I clean it every day. But you know, sometimes we've been out for a while and we come home and it's full, like, sorry, you know, whatever. And it would always start with like they would have to find something. They would have to find something that they could pick on about me because they were feeling insecure because they needed to knock me down a peg, you know, because that's what you do, you know, in order to feel like they were secure and in power again. But secretly they knew that they had not done the equivalent work on themselves, and it would start like that. And either they would leave because they'd be like, this is I don't believe this is gonna last, you know, or they would just start being mean to me. And I'd be like, I don't need this, you know, I don't need, like, I'm the one bringing everything to the table, so I'm just going to leave, I'm just going to go. So what I've learned in reaching the end of that race, and reaching my law of diminishing returns, is that it's not enough. It's not enough. And if you really want a woman like me, who has empathy and compassion, wants to be pleasing, wants to show up as her best self. It's not enough that I know your language. You have to learn mine. And that is your next step. That is the difference between men who can really connect with women and men who can't, is men who are willing to step up into their best selves and listen to women, listen to what they have to say, and really work to create emotional intimacy. Or else it's just, it's frying pans all the way down. It's just toxic relationship after toxic relationship after toxic relationship. And you've got to have that moment where you really look in the mirror and you really evaluate yourself. So, yeah, that's the way that we defeat the patriarchy, which, by the way, that's not like, I'm not slamming men when I say defeat the patriarchy, because patriarchy is hurting you guys too. Patriarchy is the one telling you to like run that race, and that's, that the power is what makes you worthy. What makes you worthy is your ability to look in the mirror, your ability to do the work on yourself and say, what's going to make me happy, what's going to make me feel connected to my partner. Because even if you get to that point, even if you win, you're still Donald Trump, not being happy with the fact that he's literally president of the United States, and still feeling insecure and still feeling bad about himself at the end of the day, so bad about himself that he has to go out and prove what his inauguration numbers are, because he doesn't believe himself, like that guy who got the email and wrote me back 4 months later. If he really believed, if he really believed in his own truth and didn't think that what I was saying was right, he wouldn't have like had to go out of his way to write this long ass email to this girl who's not even dating him anymore, not even speaking to him anymore. So, that race never ends. You're Donald Trump and you're tweeting and you're clearly miserable. And if you go down that path, and you don't have that emotional intimacy, everything is going to crumble, That's why we saw 2 years ago, what year ago, whenever it was, the fall of Ashley Madison, that website where you could go on and date married women, and, turned out, most of them were bots. There was a fake profile of me on there at one point, that was also clearly a bot, because they were stealing photos from women and just, leading them over to other sites, apparently, from what I heard of the reports. And, you're in that hellscape. You're in that where it's like, you're in a marriage, and you're going online and you're looking to cheat with more and more new attractive, because you're trying to fill that hole. You're trying to fill that gaping void in you, that the never enough part. Meanwhile, your partner that you married, like, you thought that they were the answer, but the answer was yourself. The answer was, so, you had to get right with yourself so that the two of you could actually have emotional intimacy with one another, so that you could actually come together and have a partnership and honesty and all the stuff, all the communication and knowledge of partner that keeps people together over time, that keeps them happy. And that's actually true. That's a study was published in, I think 2012 in Time magazine, that said the three greatest predictors of relationship success. They surveyed over 2,000 couples, and the three greatest predictors of relationship success are communication is the first one, knowledge of partner is the second one. That means knowing everything from what your partner likes on their pizza to what their hopes and dreams are. And the third one is like, how are you able to manage your life? Like, do you have life management skills? Can you pay your bills on time? And all of that is what actually keeps people together. And if they're together, that means they're happy, right? That's what happiness is about. So you can go this route, and you can either, you can end up with someone who's not enough, who's you don't have that emotional intimacy with, because you can't be honest with yourself, so you can't be honest with them. So you go on Ashley Madison, and then, your name gets doxxed and your credit card information gets sold to wherever it got sold to. And, that's we're talking about predicting the future here. That is what is down that path, is divorce and porn, not porn and like, oh, I'm going to share porn with my partner, I'm going to, get inspired, but porn like, this is my only source of intimacy, and, strip clubs and sex workers, not for the point of entertainment, or like I'm traveling or whatever, but sex workers because that's all you can, that's the only intimacy that you have, because you're not being intimate with your partner, right? That's where all that, it's like, and your partner meanwhile is not feeling connected to you, and lets themselves go, and stops putting effort into themselves and the relationship and everything, and they're just, they're just coming home and bitching about why you didn't do the dishes and you're not having sex anymore. Like, that's where that leads, okay? That is where the rat race of the patriarchy ultimately leads. And it's never enough Louboutins and designer handbags, and that's, women get by on that and men get by on porn and cheating and Ashley Madison and strip clubs and whatever. And that's like, there's just that disconnect. That's what happens. I've seen it. I've met those guys, I was a pro dom. I've met them, and the path of finding out what actually makes you happy, and looking in the mirror and saying, I've done, I've gotten to that point. I've gotten to the point where I'm about as attractive as I can get. I see the gaping void for what it is, and what can I do now? And being able to say, well, of everything I've tried, what really makes me happy, which person or people, like, make me happy, what life makes me happy, what I've tried all this stuff, what am I actually living for? What is actually making me happy? When I'm on my deathbed, am I going to have these 5 regrets of, just being in this race, or am I actually going to spend time with my loved ones and do the things I love that make me happy? That, that's what makes for, lesser chance of divorce and unhappiness, and people who actually like have good lives and stay together. So here's me, here's the feminine. You can say, like, Arden's wrong about all this. She just doesn't want me to go out and smash because, she doesn't, because, I don't know, because because I hate women. I want to use them. I want to keep on using them. And, like, Arden wants to keep me from going out and smashing every night, and keeping women in that box, whatever. I mean, you can say that. Maybe you'll come back to this video in a few years. I invite you, if it really, yeah, if it hits home, if 4 months later you're tempted to write a really nasty YouTube comment, maybe just think about it. Maybe it's not time yet, but that's, you can dismiss all of this, or you can really look at, like, what's going to make me happy? What is going to, how can I get there? And that's it, is facing yourself in the mirror, getting right with yourself, getting emotionally intimate with the feminine, which requires, like I said, you're learning our language. You're listening to us, you're respecting us, you're valuing us for everything we are, allowing us to show up for you in our full expression, right? Not this oppressed, mindless sex bot kind of thing, but for us to show up and to have our own, for us to thrive, for us to have equal pay, not to take anything away from you, but so that we can thrive in a world where we can own our bodies and be in choice, so we can show up and serve you and be of service to you in a way that's meaningful, that you can be, that we can be in service to each other, to have this awesome, emotionally intimate relationship, the kind that's going to last, the kind that, like, we're going to be, on our deathbeds together being like, wow, what a ride. That was great. Where we're not going to be regretful, where we're going to say, wow, we found enough. We found the enough. We found happiness. We reached that point and we got there and we said, let's just be happy. So that's my question to you is, are you happy? Are you happy? Are you really happy? Or do you just think that you're happy? Are you just getting a dopamine hit from posting another field report so your bros can fist bump you over the internets? Are you really happy? What do you want? That is the question. And I've gotten to a point where I know what I want, and I'm ready to be happy. That's why I'm here. So, I'll see you guys next time.